So, have you ever stopped to think if the money in your wallet or, the number you see in your bank account could just become worthless? And I don't mean slowly, over years. I mean practically overnight. Sounds like something out of a movie, right? Well, it's a very real thing. Let's get into it.
Just look at this number for a second. That is 100 quintillion, 20 zeros. I mean, it's an absurdly large number. You'd probably guess it's a country's entire GDP or something astronomical. But what if I told you that this exact number was printed on a single banknote?
And there it is, the real deal. This was the 100 quintillion pango note from Hungary back in 1946. Now, you'd think this would make you a billionaire a billion times over, but get this, it could barely buy you a postage stamp. In fact, it got so bad that by the end, the total value of all the banknotes in circulation in the entire country was worth just 1,000th of a single US cent. And that really is the question we're tackling here. How on earth does money die that fast? This isn't just your standard inflation. No, this is a total catastrophic collapse of value. So how does a country's currency get to a point where the only solution seems to be adding more and more zeros, even when that's what's making everything worse? To figure out the how, we've got to start with the most insane example in history, the collapse of the Hungarian pingo right after World War II. The speed of its death is, well, it's almost hard to believe. What's really mind-blowing here is just how fast everything fell apart. Think about this. Prices were doubling every 15 hours. A salary you got in the morning was worth half as much by dinner time. So the government just kept printing bigger and bigger notes, ending up with that 100 quintillion pango bill we just saw. They actually printed an even bigger one, a 1/6 note. That's a one with 21 zeros. But they never even got it out the door before the currency was completely abandoned. Okay, so what kicks off an economic firestorm like this? There are always a few different factors, but the main engine, the spark that really lights the fire, is almost always the exact same thing: the government just printing money. All right, before we go any deeper, let's just be clear on what we're talking about. The economist Philip Kagan came up with the technical definition. This isn't just inflation is really high, it's a specific, measurable crisis. It officially starts when prices go up by more than 50% in a single month. To give you some perspective, most big economies today aim for about 2% inflation for an entire year. This is 50% month after month after month. At its absolute core, it really just boils down to basic supply and demand. It's like anything else. If you flood the market with something, just pump up the supply like crazy, while nobody really wants it, its value is going to crash. And the easiest way for a government to flood the market with its currency? Well, you just print more of it. So the big question is, why would any government do this? It's not like they're clueless. It's almost always an act of pure desperation. A government has bills to pay, right? But sometimes it just can't get enough money from taxes. Maybe like Germany or Hungary after the wars, they owe a ton of money to other countries. Or maybe like Zimbabwe in the 90s, they jumped into a war they didn't budget for. They still have to pay soldiers, government workers, keep political promises. And when all other options are gone, that printing press starts to look like the only way out. But here's the thing, just printing money is only part of the story. That's the engine, sure, but it's not what takes things from bad to catastrophic. For that, you need another critical ingredient, and that is human psychology. This is the accelerator that turns regular high inflation into hyperinflation. And the concept here is called the velocity of money. It's pretty much what it sounds like. How fast does cash move around? Normally, you get paid, maybe you hold on to it for a bit, pay some bills. The velocity is kind of slow. But what if you knew that by tomorrow, your money would be worth a lot less? You'd spend it the second you got it, right? And that's the hot potato effect. Nobody wants to be the one left holding the cash when the value disappears. This isn't some newfangled idea. We've understood this for a very long time. Way back in 1802, an economist named Henry Thornton pointed out that the simple expectation that prices will go up is enough to make people spend faster. That faster spending, that higher velocity, then makes the money lose value even quicker. It literally becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what does this actually look like for people on the ground? Well, this comment from a Reddit thread about the Hungarian hyperinflation is just a perfect example. Once the official money, the pengo, became a hot potato that nobody wanted, people had to find something else to use for trade, something with real value. And you know what they used? Eggs.
For a while, eggs basically became the new currency because they were a real, tangible thing that held its value, unlike the paper money. So, you take the engine, the government printing press, and you combine it with the accelerator, people's expectations making them spend like crazy. What do you get? You get a vicious cycle, a feedback loop that just feeds on itself and becomes almost impossible to stop. We call it the doom loop. Okay, let's walk through this because it's crucial. Step 1, the government prints money to pay its bills. Step 2, all that new money makes prices start to go up. Step 3, people see this happening and they expect prices to keep going up. This leads to step 4, they spend their money as fast as they can, which jacks up the velocity. Now, step 5, all that fast spending creates a huge surge in demand for goods, which pushes prices up even faster than just the printing press alone did. And that brings us to step 6. Now the government's even more broke, so it has to go back to step 1 and print even more money. And the loop just keeps going, faster and faster each time. Now, Hungary's case might be the most extreme, but it is not a fluke. This has happened all over the world. Just look at this table. You see the same basic story playing out in Weimar Germany, in Greece, Bolivia, and much more recently in Zimbabwe. The specific numbers are different. Some just barely cross that 50% monthly threshold. Others are astronomical. But the core mechanics are always the same. A government in crisis, and a population that's lost all faith in its currency. So what do you even do if you're an ordinary person caught in this economic nightmare? Well, human behavior becomes incredibly predictable. First, you stop saving in the local currency immediately. Instead, you try to keep your wealth in real things. Property, canned food, anything that will hold its value. You scramble to get your hands on a stable foreign currency, like the US dollar. Soon enough, shops start listing their prices in dollars, even if you have to pay with a wheelbarrow full of local cash. And, of course, any local money you do get, you spend it instantly. When you really look at these extreme events, it forces you to take a step back and ask a much bigger, more fundamental question. It goes way beyond just economics. It's about the very idea of what money even is. And here's the key takeaway. Hyperinflation proves that money has no inherent value. A dollar bill is just a piece of paper. Its value comes from a shared agreement, a collective trust that we can all exchange it for things we want today and tomorrow. Hyperinflation is what happens when that trust, that shared belief, completely shatters. And that really leaves us with one final, pretty heavy thought. We've seen just how fragile this system of trust can be when it's put under enough pressure. It makes you realize that the money in your pocket is powered by faith in the stability of the institutions that issue it. So, if money really is just a shared belief, it's worth asking yourself, just how strong is that belief today?